So I did some thinking yesterday after I left here, and I thought about where I had this filter. And I like the spot, except I totally forgot that I need mufflers in this area. That's what this is kind of designated for. So I went up top, got my one muffler down, and then I'm gonna just slip it on here, and we'll kind of see how it's looking. Hopefully it gives me enough room. I actually think it will. Looking at this, it's actually a very small muffler. It came with the Bassani exhaust that I got. So I don't think that I'll have an issue with interference or anything like that. And I could, in theory, delete mufflers, but I like having mufflers. They're kind of nice to make the car not super loud and drony and whatever. And I already know, like, with this setup, it's going to be pretty loud. One reason that I'm fine with this pretty small muffler in the grand scheme of things is because these also have baffles in them. So it's not really like a blast pipe. That should help calm it down a little bit too. So I'm gonna get this kind of propped up in place, and then we'll see how much room we have up there. So with this kind of held up in place, for one, I can see it's actually gonna hit the body of the car. This obviously is not a Cobra. My car is not an 03 Cobra. So I'd imagine this area is built out a little bit differently. With that said, there's clearly enough room to the side of it that this won't actually have an issue. So I'm not exactly sure what I'm gonna do for the exhaust here and actually have it made up in mufflers and all that jazz. But if I get a muffler that is this width but shorter, then it will work. So point is, I'm comfortable with leaving this inside of this pocket here and continuing to move forward. So we'll move on. I don't know if I showed this yet, but I had the fuel lines both ran across the car here underneath. If we travel up to the front, it's kind of just currently snaked up and set into the engine bay. If we come back under the car, you could see right here how this is rubbing here. I actually came up with the solution for it that I'm comfortable with. Ordered something on Amazon. It'll be here in a couple days. I'll show that to you guys when it's in. But we're gonna now start figuring out where I'm gonna mount the fuel regulator in the engine bay. We're gonna figure out exactly how we're gonna mount the fuel regulator down in there, in this area, and then cut our next end for the AN lines. With these fuel lines tucked over in the corner, kind of like that, I'm really not worried about it touching the wheel anytime. This is how they run it from the factory anyways. There should be a fender liner here. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to fit one later on, but whatever. I just have one Tech screw right down there holding this in place, just so I could get an idea of it. This return line, I'm gonna do a 90 out of the bottom, and then the feed, I'm doing a straight hose in, or a straight fitting in. And then I'll do the same thing on this side to go over to the fuel rail on the driver's side of the motor. But I think that's how I'm gonna do it. I marked both these with tape. Gonna undo them on the other side, pull everything out, put my fittings on, and run everything again, and then pray that I can get it back through the way that I did everything underneath the car. So that's the next step. I am obviously gonna put the second screw in on that side. And then I think as a permanent solution, I'm going to come on the inside here. I'll be able to see where the two holes are, and then I can weld nuts on the inside. That way I have like a semi-proper, mounting tab for this. So I think that's the best way for me to go about it. So I realized with these lines that there's no way I was gonna get them between the car and the Stifler stuff with these fittings on. So I just did it by hand here. I don't think it's gonna be that big of a deal. I put some tape around the bottom of it as I did it. That way I could tell if it was backing off or not. And then I made sure that it would line up, which it is. So that means I need to drill the second hole out. The way I'm gonna do that is I use the center punch right there, and then I'm gonna go on the inside of the car. And if I look very carefully, you can kind of see that little dimple in line with the screw that I have there. And that's where my hole is. So I'm gonna drill from this side out, and then I'll put the screw from the engine bay side into here. I don't know if I mentioned this though, this bracket comes actually the other way, and then I just swapped it to be technically upside down. So it doesn't make any real difference for the way that it functions, it's just how I'm doing it. We got that hooked up now. I'm gonna worry about those lines a little bit later as far as how I'm gonna get them attached to the wall. So we're gonna move on to the intake manifold portion of it, where that fuel line goes into the intake. So I don't think I'm gonna actually get it on here permanently or anything quite at this second, but I am going to just set it in place. That way I can get the length of that line. All right, got this fuel line ran. It's running right on top of the transmission back there. Comes around, goes into this 90-degree and then into this quick fitting. That's the size for it. This is the size for this quick connect here. So did that into a 90 because I just wanted to try and run it kind of as close to the fuel rail as possible. I think it looks a little bit cleaner. I kind of wish that I could do something like straight back, but I'm not going to bend this. Regardless, this is the finished product for now. I just have to, like I said before, tighten those back up. I'm going to secure all the lines to like the filter in the back, and then now we can also raise the fuel tank in order to see how that fits. But I can't do it today because I got to go. Put the fuel tank back where it belongs, make sure that this is 100%. But overall, I'm actually pretty damn happy with how this ended up. Underneath here, went ahead and reattached this feed line, and then I also drilled and tapped a hole here. That way I have a top and a bottom bolt holding this from moving around. And I was able to find a bolt that was the same size as that. So both of these are 10 mils. You can use whatever size you want, or just don't even mount it here, I don't care. But that's how I did it, little ease of life thing as far as them both being the same. But I think that's a pretty good spot for it. Next thing we did at the back of the car was make sure that both of these lines, the feed and the return, are tight onto our fuel hat here. And then I also put this hose on the expansion valve. I'm not exactly sure where I'm gonna run it, but I just had this hose laying around, so I figured I'd throw it on and then figure that out later. So that can just kind of go there for now. And then I also put the fuel filler neck in place, and we'll have to snake it over the exhaust here and up into the hole as I put this in. So I think I'm ready now to actually throw this back in the car. We can check if these lines are too long or not. I'm praying that they aren't, but you know, we'll see how much room we got with them and where we can tuck them away once this is actually up. Underneath here, those lines look good. I don't think they're gonna go anywhere near anything. I actually quite like it. This is just that one vent hose that I don't care about at this moment. It's just dangling here. But if you come to the back, she's in. I'm gonna swap out this bottom whenever I add a secondary fuel pump. And I don't know when that's gonna be. So I think at this point, the fuel system is all in. Up front here, we're gonna remove this little screw here, and then we're gonna install the fuel pressure regulator gauge. With that out, we're gonna take our gauge here and we're gonna put some high temp thread sealant on this and then just screw it in. All right, now we got that in place, and then like I was saying before, from the front here, get a pretty good view of it, even if I had a hood on here and whatnot. So I guess the only thing that would end up in the way of that is future hoses and lines and stuff, but shafooey, who needs those things? Fuel lines are ran all the way across onto there, not tight because we got to take this back off in order to do some stuff on the intake. But as far as the fuel system goes, it's in, it's done, it's just not wired. So we'll wire it in and we'll show you that when that time comes. So for the hard edges that the line is up against, I got this door guard on Amazon, just some cheap stuff. Underneath here, you can see I just put it on the edges here. That way it's not gonna end up chafing through these, at least not for a very, very, very long time. So that's what I was talking about for this little spot. I did also put some right around here, but I don't know. Looks kind of goofy on this side because this is flared inward. So I don't know if I'm gonna leave it like that, but it's a thing. All right, so on the inside of the car here, I welded in those two nuts. I did the same thing with a nut there and a nut there. Had a bit of trouble with one of them, the screws breaking, whatever, doesn't matter. Either way, now I have a permanent mounting solution for the fuel pressure regulator, and I have these mounted up right down here. So these are just little like 1/2-inch hose line clamps that I got here, and that will keep it nice and tight. And then underneath, I have that one spot there, and I'll tidy that last little bit just by zip tying it to the Stifler system. Not a huge deal because I did leave these lines a little bit long, but it's nice, it's out of the way, I like it, and I think we'll call that all wrapped up for the fuel system. But thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. And then underneath, And underneath he